Hey y'all, it's your boy Low Effort, and this is my first video of this kind. I'm, generally speaking, when I make videos, as hopefully many of y'all are aware, I'm making gaming playthroughs because I found that I enjoy playing the game more when I'm recording, and I'm able to kind of share it with people who might either not want to put the time to play the game or are doing other things at that point in time. But I realized that I kind of wanted to venture out into other forms of entertainment, and this is one of those forms that I want to venture out into, and that is kind of show critiquing or movie critiquing. And this is sort of my test run into that. And to make this test run, I'm going to talk about a show that I am somewhat passionate about, and by passion I mean passionately hating, and that is a show called Legacies, which is a Vampire Diaries spinoff. To give you a little bit of background on my interest in shows like this, first, I'm a writer. I'm currently trying to get published. It is literally my life's goal is to get published right now. So stories and things like that, I'm very, very well versed in. I went to college for creative writing. I love stories. For instance, have you ever heard of Firefly? Great show, great stories, great character development, good across the board. Honestly speaking, probably one of the best shows to watch if you're looking for a show to watch. So before I continue, actually, I need to say there's going to be spoilers in this video about the show. I was about to say, if you're planning on watching it, don't watch this, but actually please watch this if you're planning on watching it, because hopefully I can convince you not to watch it. It's not a good show. But with that warning out of the way, let me kind of dive into what makes the show as bad as it is. If you haven't seen Vampire Diaries, I'll give you a quick overcast. Vampire Diaries is a great show, by the way. It's very, very dramatic, but has pretty good plot, pretty good story development and character development. It's still like basically a soap opera drama, but I think that you can put a lens of a soap opera drama. What? That word doesn't sound real. A soap opera drama on a show and then be like, okay, it's still a good show even though it's overly dramatic, etc., etc., etc. But and I think that that's sort of my take on Vampire Diaries. It's just the characters are very enjoyable, the storyline is very enjoyable, everything as a concept is enjoyable to watch, and you get very engaged into the show. Originals, the one that follows Vampire Diaries, infinitely better than Vampire Diaries, super well made. Production value, very high. Love the story, love everything like that. If you're looking for a Vampire Diaries show to watch, after you've watched Vampire Diaries, Originals. There you go. That's your answer. You already watched Originals. That's all the Vampire Diaries content that's out there. Trust me. If you don't trust me, there's another show called Legacies. And we're talking about Legacies. So, quick overview. Legacies is a show about a school called Salvatore's something. It's a school called Salvatore's that houses werewolves, witches, and vampires. The three primary species, you might say, that exists inside the Vampire Diaries universe. This school is supposed to be the safest place in the world for these three types of supernaturals to be in, but it is 100% the least safe place for them to be. And the reason is because of my boy, Malefor, the big bad demon boy, who is basically the primary premise for the entire show, because he is the reason why most of the bad things happen. If it wasn't for him, everything good would probably happen. Well, that's not true, because the characters suck. But let's kind of move back here. Malefor has two sons who go to the school, human form, something weird with them, but both of them are not revealed to be his sons until later in it, but that doesn't matter. Moving on from that, that is the whole premise of the show. School. Demon boy trying to get into the school for his nefarious purposes. That's it. There you go. Everything else is just the characters and the romantic interest between them and the emotion that they have towards each other, which really consists of about 98% of the show, with the 2% remaining being the slow motion action cutscenes whenever someone gets hit. So yeah. With that being, I keep saying with that being said, but it is kind of a with that being said. With that withstanding, that show doesn't sound the worst in the world. It just sounds like a normal soap opera show. However, we're going to get into my first problem with the show. I know you're like, that's your first problem? That whole plot sounds terrible. How is that not your... That is a problem. But I'm the way I'm grading this show is a much lower grade than... I can't use like a normal grading system on this show because it's not a good show. So I'm starting at like a C minus is like an A for this show. Okay. But we're gonna go into why this show drops immediately into a D tier. And there's more to come that puts it even lower. But we're going to start with the D tier. And that is the idea of an OC. You ever heard of an OC? I'm about to explain an OC, so you don't need to worry about not knowing what an OC is. An OC is an original character, and it is 100% the most degenerate form of creation and writing that exists. What an original character basically is some 14, 15-year-old fanboy or girl that exists out there who is like, I love Harry Potter, so I'm going to create my little person who is a super powerful wizard and also ends up with Hermione. And then they create a fan fiction of that with their original character. And honestly speaking, I don't even dislike fan fictions. If you'll just keep the characters that exist inside the show already and proceed with that, make your own storylines, that's fine, that's cute. Don't create a character that it's the sole purpose of them is for you to project yourself into the character and then the character be unbelievably overpowered and overimportant. That's an OC. Degeneracy at its finest. The worst form of creation that exists is OC. The main character of Legacies is 100% somebody's OC. Her name's Hope Michelson. She is the daughter of an original. If you don't watch Vampire Diaries, you don't know what that means, but that's fine. She's the daughter of the originals, the most powerful vampires out there. She is, which means that she is a vampire and a witch for some reason, and a werewolf. Wait, she's all three? Right! And she's also the most important character in the entire show, and everything revolves around her, and nothing good happens without her, and everything bad happens because of her, or has to do it. It's all her. The show should be just called Hope Michelson the Show. But it's not. It's called Legacies because they have other characters that are also terrible and aren't interesting. And I'm not going to actually mention a single other character's name in this entire show because the truth is that they are all painfully forgettable. The only character that you're going to remember if you've seen Vampire Diaries is Alaric, who is a really well-created show that is sort of shafted in this particular follow-up of Vampire Diaries because of the fact that he is not important to the story really ever. It's just Hope Michelson. If Hope shows up, then nobody else needs to be there because she's going to take care of it. And she's going to take care of it in a very calm, smooth, suave fashion, and she's going to seem super mature about it all, but she's really not super mature about it all. Okay, but moving on, because I could get so caught up in just how terrible of an idea it is to make a character that blindingly overpowered. How bad of a writing choice it is to do that, because it literally negates the importance of every other character, and now you have to go out of your way to create situations that are so unbelievably wild that it makes other characters somewhat important. And that's what they do, and it still doesn't work because it's still all Hope. And Alaric is completely screwed over because he's supposed to be the protector, and yet he is like literally not important at all because everything is about Hope's savior or martyr complex. And let's move on. I'm sorry. Let's move on. That's point number one. You can't put an OC in a show. You can't center an entire show around an original character. It's degeneracy at its finest. It's literally the show had like the main guy had like a daughter. Like the guy that wrote this show had a daughter, and his daughter was like, I want to be a vampire werewolf magic hybrid. Make a show about it. And the dad was like, oh God, no, that's a terrible idea. Or alternatively, and this is what I personally believe is headcanon, is that the entire show is actually filmed and cast like 3 years from now during like some kind of crazy writer's strike and was like time traveled back into our current time, because there's no way that a writer existed on this show. Which is where we get into number two. And I'm gonna real quickly outline a couple episodes of the show just to give you a premise for what most of the episodes are like. Episode number one that I'm gonna talk about, and I'm gonna read these because I wrote them down so I'm not gonna mess up. So here we go. Episode number one I'm going to talk about. ancient Japanese possessed samurai, what a statement, comes back to the present and is hunting a demon that switches bodies a lot until the demon gets into the body of one of Alaric's daughters. Instead of the storyline ending in an interesting way, like Alaric's daughter gets sacrificed or something like that, and the story has to progress with learning about that. No, it turns out, instead of having to stab the demon, you can just blast the demon with a ton of black magic, and the demon will die, and the daughter will be fine. Okay, great. We have summed up one of the episodes. Super interesting. Let's go to the second one. Everyone becomes super happy in October because it snows. Yes, this is the first 10 minutes of this episode are literally it's snowing, everyone's getting super happy, and then Hope is like, why is everyone super happy? I don't like holidays. I'm not happy. And so she's going around trying to figure out why people are happy because she doesn't want people to be happy. Turns out, surprisingly, thanks to the story, she's right. There's a Krampus that shows up, a Krampus being like an evil Santa Claus, and everyone's being happy, and they're just going to all die in their happiness, I guess. And who comes to save them? Santa Claus! Santa Claus is real, and he comes to save them and fist fights the Krampus into the ground. I can't make this up. Okay, number 3. Everyone forgets about Hope because she sacrifices herself to save everyone, which is a very consistent theme of the show, by the way. Like, painfully consistent. This is every other episode. She is sacrificing herself in some way to save everyone else. But, she tries to sacrifice herself to save everyone, and when she returns, she somehow gets out of, like, the dark void world that exists after she sacrifices it. Everybody has forgotten her. Interesting storyline right now. Really reminds me of the Teen Wolf season 4 with Styles and him being forgotten, but hey, let's not get into that. It's definitely not plagiarism. And so Hope looks around and sees that her basic half-sister starts to have sexual relationships with Hope's boyfriend. Pretty messed up, right? But hey, none of them remember Hope, so it kind of doesn't matter that much. But it's happening, and Hope sees all this, and the first thought that goes to her mind is, man, everyone's so much happier without me. Which is so true. Like, she... literally, her not existing in the show suddenly make the show slightly interesting. Her returning back and nobody remembering her made the show somewhat interesting. I was like, crazy. Is she going to have to kind of move on and befriend people and they don't know who she is? So she's like an outsider looking in now. I was like, this show could take a very interesting twist. No! Because there's no writers on the show. And so what do? Hey, black magic apparently solves all problems even though it's super evil. One blast of black magic and suddenly everyone remembers her again. And now there's a strange love triangle between her and her half basic sister and her boyfriend who has now done things with both of them. And that's not awkward at all. But hey, let's move on. One more. Let's talk about one more episode because why not? Okay, so Hope and her other basic half-sister, not the one that's sleeping with her boyfriend, but the other basic half-sister, they get teleported into a video game. I can't explain further from this because it doesn't matter. You guys get by this point that this is a show that is fully taking itself seriously. Like, there's nothing laughy about this show. Everything that happens is taken full seriously, and it's not like Riverdale season 3 that is like so outlandish that you're like, the writers get it. No, this is like the writers still think that they're making it. I say writers. The individuals who are creating the show still think they're making a good show. Like, they genuinely believe they're making a good show. But it's just not. So I'm not going to explain the rest of that episode. If you really want to watch it, go watch it. It's so stupid. There's a line in that episode that's, thanks, Frank. And right when I heard that line, I actually died laughing. Because I was like, up until that point, I was just like, there's no way this is real. And that line happened, I'm like, are they aware? Are they aware this show's terrible? I don't think that they are, but that line killed me. So one more thought before I finish this episode off, and it's kind of like my last problem with this show, is the fact that in every single episode there's a different threat. So in Vampire Diaries, one of the greatest parts about it is that the threat is like this looming and always existing, vampires versus humans, vampire versus witches, vampires versus the sun, literally. And you have all this drama between the characters and the development of the characters, but it really is very consistent in what it's doing, right? Like it's just, you get to season 3 or 2 of Vampire Diaries, and then you have the originals involved, and now there's this huge thing with the originals that lasts like 3 seasons. But this is like, in one episode, you meet the necromancer, a dangerous, raising dead individual who is unbelievably powerful, and then he dies like the next episode. And then you meet the Sphinx, an incredibly powerful, all-knowing being who just disappears in the end of that episode. And then you meet an ogre who runs, and he just dies at the end of that episode. And you're like, but I thought the whole point of this show was to have good villains, because if you don't have a good villain, then what's the point of the show? But it's Malifaux. No, it really isn't. Because, like, you're talking about, like, the puppet master holding all the strings behind the screen, but it's not that. Like, you really can't connect everything back to Malifaux unless the characters say out loud, oh, it's definitely Malifaux. It's like, so what? He's not doing anything. He's just sending little monsters over and over and over again to attack you, and there's never going to be a moment of peace. It's crazy that you guys have peace in any capacity. Okay, I'm going to finish on this, because genuinely speaking, I could go on for a while as to why this show's so bad, and I have like a very slight script here that I have not followed at all in this episode. So I hope that this has been a very interesting, I want to call it a rant. It's a rant, isn't it? It's just me ranting about a show that was intended to be a very well-crafted thing, but it didn't end up being that, because I just got very angry at the lack of writing and storytelling, and the fact that Netflix actually agreed to make this a show. So yeah, if you've never seen Legacies, this is my chance to tell you not to. It's not good. Like, if you've seen Riverdale season 3 and the absurdity that it is, and you're like, maybe it's like that. Maybe I'll be interested because it's so wild. No, it's not. It's not like that. Don't do that to yourself. You can spend your time doing better things, like peeling off your fingernails. With all the hate that I can muster, low effort out.